Israel says there will be no ceasefire until all of the hostages held by Hamas are released. Our Charlie D'Agata was embedded with Israel's military and joined them in a section of the northern part of the region. This comes as thousands of Palestinians are heading south to flee the fighting.
We want to bring in now Mark Cancian. He's a retired Marine colonel and senior advisor at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Mark, thank you for being with us. So the so-called ground invasion looks a little different than what many people expected. The IDF also says it's giving more time for people to leave the north. Of course, we hear Hamas pushing back on the veracity of that. Tell us, is this an indirect way that Israel's trying to bow to the pressure for a pause in fighting without giving up on their demand that hostages be released first?
Absolutely. Israel makes a distinction between a pause and a ceasefire. A pause is just that, a short period, maybe 24 hours, to allow relief supplies to get in and citizens to get out. Many of them have already evacuated, but there were still many who did not. But Israel is adamant about not supporting a ceasefire. A ceasefire would stop all the fighting where it is. In Israel's point of view, that would allow Hamas to continue to exist, to continue its operations. It would be a victory for Hamas.
The U.S. Has a strict rule stating if the U.S. provides a country weapons, they must be used in accordance to the rules of war. Can you tell us, is that happening in Gaza? And what happens if they are not used appropriately?
Well, the United States puts several restrictions on weapons that it transfers. It doesn't want them to go to third parties. It wants military weapons to stay with the military, not go to internal security, and it wants them to be used in accordance with the laws of war. But it's important to keep in mind that that's a political decision, not a judicial decision. In other words, the United States decides whether they are being used appropriately. And so far, I think that the weapons are being used as the United States expected them to be used. So the short answer is yes, the United States is not going to take action against the Israelis, despite some criticisms about the way the Israelis are fighting the war.
I want to also talk to you about the potential of this spreading beyond the confines of Israel, Gaza, because multiple U.S. troops stationed in Iraq and Syria have been targeted in rocket and drone strikes over the past month. Do you expect that these escalations may prompt more of a U.S. response?
Well, Hamas and Iran would very much like to turn this into a regional war.
Right.
So they've been trying to stir up the northern border with Hezbollah. They've been stirring up the Houthis down around Saudi Arabia and also in the Persian Gulf, attacking U.S. Forces there. I think you'll see those attacks continue, but they've been at a relatively low level. These have also been surrogates by Iran. Iran itself has stayed in the background. So I think you're going to see pretty much what we've been seeing so far, some sporadic attacks, some sporadic U.S. counters, but not a spreading war.
Colonel Cancian, thank you.
Thanks for having me on the show.